What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome to another episode of Outside the Trenches. I am BJ Kissel, joined as always by 6-year NFL veteran, former K-State All-American and Super Bowl champion with the New Orleans Saints, Mr. Nick Leckey. Nick, how goes it, my friend?
It goes it. Life on the road for me tonight. So I'm in Springfield, Illinois. I think one of the homes of The Simpsons, right? They try to keep that a mystery. So that's where I'm at right now.
I believe that is correct. And for those not watching on YouTube, you unfortunately don't get to see when Nick is on the road. We get a different display of the hotel art. So we always try to figure out what hotel chain he is staying in based on the art in the background. But as a proud member of KC Sports Network, the fact that he takes his podcasting get up on the road so we can bring this sweet, sweet podcasting to your ears. This is why we do it. We do it for you guys.
I have thoughts and I need to get them out right here. This is my platform to do that at for the Chiefs.
And thanks to our good friends at Jack Stack Barbecue, we continue to be able to do that here 3 years later after in the trenches to now outside the trenches. And it doesn't matter if you're inside or outside Kansas City, Jack Stack Barbecue can take care of you. They've got 7 locations now in the Kansas City area, including the new one off 87th Street on the Kansas side up in Lenexa. And if you don't live in the Kansas City area, don't worry about it. JackStackBBQ.com. They ship all over the country. And Nick's favorite, that Crown Prime beef rib, is worth it. You order it. It is absolutely unbelievable. But if you listen to the show, there's a good chance you already know that. So, Nick, before we break down a little Chiefs Titans on Sunday, and I'm really excited for this matchup, a lot more excited than I thought I was going to be. And maybe it's because of the way the Washington game went down, a bad first half, left kind of a bad taste in your mouth. And it didn't matter how well they played in the second half. You're just still kind of angry. That's kind of the consensus that I've heard from people. But before we break that all down, what are you, most looking forward to on the weekend overall? Like what's been your victory of the week? What are you looking forward to this weekend?
My victory of the week was definitely acquiring some old Dutch ketchup chips over eBay. I think it's that time of year where I was able to get those, and I really like that. And then what I'm looking forward to is just looking forward to see if this offense can continue to do what they do and how they sort of finished up the game versus Washington. And I'm hoping that's sort of like foreshadowing this season for the Chiefs, where the first half started out crappy and the second half they're going to finish strong. And, gear into playoffs, make a strong December, early January run.
See, I think that's the $1 million question is what's the body of work that we should all look at to see, like, what should you believe about this Chiefs team? Is it this particular team, this 6-game clip with this particular roster? Or do you go back to last year and saying, you know what, I know they'd struggled for the first 5.5 weeks defensively, but I really believe that second half against Washington, they woke up. And they're more of the defense that we saw. Not that they've been a top 5 defense, but they were, they could get those 3 stops that a Chiefs defense needs to get the offense enough extra possessions to score more points than the other team. But I think that's that $1 million question. So it'll lead right into this. The front of the queue, our first topic here, I want to throw to you. What is the number one storyline? What do you want to discuss about this matchup on Sunday?
I just love how this team is addicted to those quick hitter sort of explosive plays where you get one play and it goes 60-70 yards. And if you look at how to me, and this is what I wanted the Chiefs to see, sort of, I think as an offense you have to adapt to what's being shown to you on the field, and how teams have, I'm using air quotes here, figured out the Chiefs. And what they say on national coverage, which I think is a bunch of bullshit, is you look at the last 3 drives that counted for the Chiefs in the second half. 10 plays, 68 yards, 4 minutes, 20 seconds. 8 plays, 45, 3 minutes, 3.5. And then the last one that counted, the last drive for the Chiefs actually counted, not the turnover on downs. 15 plays, 96 yards, 7 minutes, 18 seconds. And that to me is one of those things where it's like, yeah.
Yeah, that was our Big Cedar drive, Big Cedar Golf best drive of the game in our post-game show, Nick. that was it. It's great to see that.
That was a great drive.
Yeah, it was great to see the offensive line. I think they converted like 6 third downs on that drive, and you saw a little bit of everything. And I wanted to ask you, just kind of piggybacking that, What have you seen from the offensive line? Like, to put a 15-play drive together, you had mentioned before, early in the season, you could bring in a lot of new guys, a lot of new faces, young guys who haven't played next to one another. It's one thing to practice, another thing to get those reps, especially passing guys off and the stunts and the communication and up front, and then just working together in the run game. What have you seen from that group up front and that 15-play drive? Is that the Chiefs offense efficiently running as best it possibly can?
It is. It really is. And to me, the main thing is how it was finished with a handoff, with an inside handoff for a touchdown, saying we're going to go straight at you. We're not using trickeration, and we're just going to score. We're just going to score the natural way. And I thought that was really cool to see that. And they're still figuring out a lot of what this offensive line can do, and really what this offensive line is built for. And it wasn't built for last year's Chiefs, right? You kind of have to reconfigure your style and say, okay, here's what these guys ran last year, in Baltimore, in New England, maybe in Oklahoma. And it just, you got to figure that out and see what they do, because, there's something said about playing next to someone on the offensive line where you get comfortable with them, you know what they can do. And it's the same thing for the coaches, for Andy Hecht and Andy Reid. It's like, what can they do? What are they about? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? And I thought this was great. And for them to put that sort of drive on film will strike fear into the hearts of defenses coming up.
Yeah, for Patrick Mahomes to spread the ball around. I know we talk about the running game, everything. To spread the ball around the way that they did, and they got Byron Pringle involved in some high leverage situations. McCole Hardman got some targets, got that big catch down on 3rd and 7 down the right sideline, which was great to see that development from him in something that wasn't necessarily a packaged play, something behind the line of scrimmage, but get the ball down the field. Tim, D-Rob made plays. It was just great to see those pieces, those other guys who might not get the same targets that Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill get, that we talk about all the time, that them having huge seasons and being exactly what they need to be are making those 2 or 3 plays per game when their name is called. And that's really tough for anybody to get going. These guys want targets. They want to get going. You might only get 2 or 3 shots. It was great to see those guys step up and make those plays, because for this offense to be at its very, very best, those guys need to make those kinds of plays. Just make a solid play when your name is called. So the other thing that,
and you're right too. And
yeah, go ahead, Nick. I know we're having some internet issues with the hotel Wi-Fi, but Nick, I want to talk about Derrick Henry and what the Chiefs are going to have to do, because I feel like we're having deja vu coming off of a performance. Derrick Henry, 23 carries, 188 yards, a couple of touchdowns. This is back in 2019. That was the regular season game where Derrick Henry just absolutely demolished the Chiefs. Statistically at the end, now there were some big plays in there, but looking at the playoff game going into that was the Chiefs can't stop Derrick Henry. They can't stop Derrick Henry. That's all the players were told all week, is that you're not going to be able to stop Derrick Henry. Finished the game 19 carries, 69 yards, averaged 3.6 yards per carry, which, again, going back to that regular season matchup, 8.2 yards per carry. So it's like, I know it's a different defense. It was a couple years ago, but it's just, you put so much into not being able to stop one guy. It's like, they might stop Derrick Henry. Now, I have no idea what that means for the seams across the middle with 2 big-bodied receivers like A.J. Brown and Julio, physical guys across the middle, but I have this hard time believing that they can't sell out and stop the run, because these storylines that we're hearing this week and nationally now about what Derrick Henry is going to do and all this, I feel like we've heard it before.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be up to the defensive line. I mean, honestly, it's one of those things where I think Tennessee's got a fantastic offensive line, and they got some guys who will get after you. And I think it'll be up to the defensive line to it's basic, and it sounds basic, but football is a basic sport, is that you're going to have to get off blocks. You cannot let yourself get blocked down the middle. And if anything, you got to stop Derrick Henry at that line of scrimmage. And then that way your linebackers will have an easier time tackling him. Because if you let Derrick Henry get a full head of steam, man, watch out. Nobody wants any part of that.
I remember them talking about trying to get his feet to stop at the line of scrimmage. Just get him to hesitate, slow down a little bit so he doesn't have a full head of steam getting to the second level or even getting through that defensive line and kind of sorting through the trash on the offensive side. Because to your point, like if you're not off blocks, if you're like waiting to shrug and like try to tackle him and throw a shoulder or like half body him, like you're going to bounce off like a pinball. Like you can't do that to that dude. But, you know, what's the message? I know you were on the offensive side. When you have a running back like this, what do you defensively, what's your messaging? You know, what's Steve Spagnuolo telling those guys and the defensive linemen, the linebackers about like, how do you try to slow this guy down? What mentally can you do going into this to try to make it
old school team defense, run fits, play with your fundamentals, trust the assignment, trust the play. I would even like them to see what the Falcons used to do back in the day with their D line and just do slant and angle games where you have, predetermined, everyone's going to slant to the left, slant to the right.
Yeah.
And definitely not a week for arm tackling because your arm tackle get ripped out of socket.
Yeah. This is we talk about like business decisions and all those things. Like you can't be like, waning or there's no half measures going in to make a tackle on this dude. You're going to end up to be on a highlight reel for the rest of your life. I swear to you, forever. I'll never forget. There was a play on the sideline of that playoff game where I was standing down there and Derrick Henry came. This was obviously a few years ago when I was the sideline reporter for the radio network. Derrick Henry came over and Tyrann Mathieu came over and tackled him. And I swear to you, I looked at Tyrann and I've never had so much respect for somebody just being like, how does that little dude just take down that monster by himself? Like it was like a solo. It was just like a normal tackle. It wasn't a big hit, but like Derrick Henry stands up and you're just like, how in the world can anybody bring you down, let alone that little crazy dude that's back there just shaking his head and pointing at his helmet? Like that's different level.
That's next level. That's earning your paycheck that week. If you got him solo on the sideline too, making a one-on-one tackle, you're earning your paycheck. Because Micah Hyde earned his paycheck last week. He got ran over him. He stopped him. He wasn't proud of it, but he stopped him. And whether it's ugly or pretty, a stop is a stop.
And I'm going to say that before we move on to the blind nil, and Tucker not joining, we gave Tucker the night off. He's out celebrating, having a special night with he and his girlfriend. Having their anniversary. So we'll get to blind nil here in a second. But when you played, Nick, was there ever any, like the Derrick, I don't say of your year, because I don't want to date you like that, but like who was the guy when you were playing? It doesn't have to be a running back, but who was just the guy physically that was just like that guy's on a different planet as far as just who they are and how they are as an athlete? Because I put like Derrick Henry, Tyreek Hill in a different way. It's just like just freak athlete, different level of everything. Who was it when you were around? Did you ever play with anybody that you just looked at, you're like, holy cow, you are an alien?
Steven Jackson was up there. He was a man, as a running back. He was Derrick, a little bit mini Derrick Henry, but he's a big back, ran hard. I'd say. And then as far as guys that played with, Carl Nix was our left guard in New Orleans, and the things he's do to people was just dumb. And just like, working out in the weight room with him, and then I'd stop maybe at like 5 wheels aside, and he put on like 6 wheels for like reps on squats, and he's like 6'7", 340. And that's a lot, because there's big levers on your femur. So Carl Nix was like that guy where I was like, oh my God, that dude. Yeah. And then Kevin Williams, D tackle, was a guy who you're like, damn, that dude is special. Very, very special guy. But not like, honestly, I don't think like Derrick Henry, though. Derrick Henry's up there with Bo Jackson to me, as far as like, like style, like, run through you and feared guy who's not afraid of anything and just is quiet, goes about his business.
Yeah, if he gets a full head of steam, like if he gets through the first and second level of the defense and he's running full steam, I don't want Tyrann to try to tackle him like that. That's not a business decision. That's a medical decision.
Go.
Like,
just go.
You need a clavicle to play. Like you can't lose.
Yes, and you need
let him score.
Your chest as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, let's move on to blind nil. And anyone who's listened to the show and doesn't know what it is or hasn't listened to this show, Nick and I each have a segment that we do not know what each other are bringing. We'll discuss it for the next few minutes. It'll be a little bit shorter of a show than usual. Nick, I'm going to go first because we haven't announced this yet, but on the college side of our network here at KC Sports Network, we are going to be doing some fun activations, tailgate shows. We're going to go out on the road and be with the people. And the first tailgate show we are doing is in Manhattan, actually next weekend, October 29th and 30th. We are going to have a live show Friday night at Rockin' K's Bar and Grill across the street from the football stadium there. We've got a couple of current K-State athletes that are going to be hanging out with John Kurtz and Bethany Bowman. We'll be hosting this live show that you can find on the YouTube channel here at KC Sports Network and on Twitter and all these places. Saturday night, 8 to 9 o'clock, or excuse me, Friday night, 8 to 9 o'clock, we'll have that live show. Again, Aaliyah Carter, volleyball player, Dylan Phillips, current baseball player, and Coach Pete Hughes, the current baseball coach at K-State, entering his third year. All of them are going to join, again, John Kurtz and Bethany Bowman there in Manhattan on Friday night. And Saturday, we are doing a live tailgate show with Aaron Lockett, John Kurtz, and guess who's going to be stopping by, everybody? This beautiful face that I've gotten to stare at every week that we've recorded a podcast, Mr. Nick Leckey, is going to stop by and join us along with some other current and former K-State athletes. It's going to be a lot of fun. And that was all to tell you, Nick, that my blind nil is what's the best road trip that you've ever taken? Because in addition to the one in Manhattan, and I'll give you some time, KC Sports Network, we're also doing an activation up in Columbia for a Mizzou football game coming up here pretty soon. And then as the Border War college basketball podcast that we have with Jeff Hawkins, former KU point guard, Jared Sutton, former Mizzou guard, they will be activating in Lawrence around particular basketball games. So we've got a lot of fun stuff, and there's some other trips that we may be taking soon. So we're going to get out and about with the people. We've been planning these for a while now, and it's going to be fun to get out there and see the people, Nick. So I've given you plenty of time to think about what your best road trip is. What do you got?
Is this for like work, like a football road trip, or is this like a pleasure road trip?
Whatever popped into your head first.
I would definitely say the best road trip ever was senior year of high school was New Year's Eve 2000. So we road trip from Grapevine, Texas to Seadrift, Texas, which is a crappy little shrimping village on the coast of Texas. And my buddy's dad had a hunting lodge, which is essentially a room, like a big room, like a big size of your living room on stilts with a wraparound porch. We had saved coins in one of those like big Pepsi coin bank. And we ended up getting like $400. And we had my buddy's dad buy us beer and vodka. And we went out and just we rang in the New Year's, for a couple of days and just had some good times. And we're out in the middle of nowhere, because I knew nothing was gonna happen to Y2K, but it was just fun to be out there in the middle of nowhere on the coast, hanging out on a fire, just hanging out with your buddies, just chilling, shooting guns, riding 4-wheelers. It was fun.
That's cool. One of my favorite road trip is kind of similar in that I went from Kansas City. It's a different one because I drove from Kansas City and I went to visit a buddy who was living, his best man at my wedding. His name's Tommy Bryant, owns a Fielder's Choice Baseball Academy down there in Wichita. But I went down to visit Tommy because he was playing independent ball for the Shreveport Sports was the team. They're actually in the same league as what used to be the T-Bones, now the Kansas City Monarchs. They were in that American Association League. And he was playing, so I just one summer drove down there to spend a few days with him before I was moving to Arizona. And so I drove by myself with everything that I owned. I was going to basically move to Arizona. I said, you know what? I'm going to drive through Shreveport on my way. So by myself, just got in the car. I was moving to Arizona. So I drove down to Shreveport, hung out with my buddy for a few days, just stayed on his couch. And then I drove to Arizona, like all the stuff that I own, just kind of like out on the road. And it was really just like cool time. Like I was by myself, I wasn't with my buddies, but it was just cool to be out on the road. Just like I'm moving out west. And like, that was what I was saying. It's like, I'm getting out of Kansas City. I'm getting out of Manhattan. And that's when I moved out of Manhattan. I lived there for like 6 years or whatever. It was really, really cool. But I got thinking road trips because we're planning these to Manhattan and Columbia and Lawrence. And then we've got a couple other ones that we're not quite ready to announce yet, but a lot of cool stuff. So if you are a fan of any of those schools, make sure you've subscribed to those audio channels. You can find them by searching KCSN : and like KU Athletics, K-State Athletics, Mizzou Athletics. That's where you can find all of our college shows. But again, Nick will be joining us next weekend. They're in Manhattan, Saturday afternoon. That show will be like 12:30 to 2 o'clock. You can find it as well on our YouTube, our Facebook, our Twitch, all the places that you consume our content. You will be able to find it. Nick, that was my blind nil. What do you have?
All right, I'll give you my Chiefs one first, and I'll do my random one second. But my blind nil is with this stretch, and then how they played versus Washington, and then maybe Green Bay coming up, and then maybe Cowboys both at home. Did the Chiefs come out of this stretch stronger, or do they come out of this bloodied and exposed?
I'm generally an optimist, to shock nobody who's listening to the show. I think they're going to come out ahead. And I think you can make this case every year regarding injuries. And I know Anthony Hitchens being hurt is not good for any reason, because Anthony Hitchens is a great player. He's a starter for a reason. But I think getting Nick Bolton and Willie Gay reps next to each other, two young linebackers, they have to learn to communicate to one another. I think that will ultimately serve this team well if Anthony Hitchens comes back and plays at some point later in the season when it counts. The communication, the comfortability is going to be better because these young players got a shot to play in games that mattered early in the season. And whether it's prime time, just every game the Chiefs play, it's going to rookies, there's going to be that feel of people are coming after us. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to take everyone's best shot. And I'm guessing, because I obviously couldn't know, I defer to you, Nick, because you've played. But even though it's a regular season game, I've got to think that the leverage and the feel of a Chiefs game against, even the Titans on Sunday at noon is a different vibe than the Jets and the Giants, like the same week at noon. You know what I mean? Like, as a rookie player, like, it's still higher leverage, like more pressure, kind of happening. So I think it's going to be a good thing to get those young guys some reps, and we have some injuries and guys are playing next to each other. Getting rep Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith. I think all this is really, really good. And I think on the defensive side, I think this matchup actually plays well into at least from a run defense standpoint. Like, Nick Bolton, he's good coming downhill. Like, he's going to hit you. He's great in run defense. He's physical in that way. And Derrick Henry's going to challenge that. So I think that is definitely something to watch. But yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I like what you said about that, about, guys getting a chance to step up. And I think that's the one thing I was watching this game, and I was watching I felt like Mike Danick kind of took a little step forward last week. Mm-hmm. And I thought he just played really well, played really solid, and, getting aggressive. So I think it's something that young guys need to step up on this defense, to really do that. So I'm with you. I'm an optimist as well. I thought they did come out of this better. And then also, best thing about this stretch is this offense needed to get humbled. I really do think that there was a feeling of invulnerability, and then they thought that they were the sweetest thing on earth, and that they could just roll their hats out there and they'd win. And it's not like that. They've had to adjust. They've been punched in the mouth a lot.
And I want to ask you, because it's not this like big conscious decision, I don't think, to go from being like locked in. It's not just like this, they're just ho-humming through meetings. They're not really paying attention. There's just that level of operating at like a 9.8 to like a 10. And I think that's the difference. And that's that margin of error we talk about, of being like a really good team to being like a phenomenally great team. And that maybe the offense, I think I stole your analogy once when I said, like, maybe the Chiefs offense just got a little civilized, kind of like with the MMA fighters, like they lose that desire. You win the Super Bowl. Like, what was it about their mental, like the mistakes that they were making, and just kind of the lack of urgency, whatever it was, however you want to describe it, we could all kind of see like, hey, we're better than this. And they're not playing at a great level. There's turnovers all over the place. At some point, there's something that's got to switch. And for me, I don't think that ability and that turning it on means going from like they're not paying attention to meetings to all of a sudden like everybody's really attentive. It's like a subconscious buy-in from everyone. Does that make sense at all? Am I barking up the right tree with you? Like, do you understand what I mean?
Yeah. It's not a work week thing. It's just like on the field, like you expect things to happen. And when they don't happen, it can be frustrating. And I think, they were trying to force the issue about as far as, let's make these big plays. Let's do all this stuff. And it's like, no, let's switch up our gears, right? Like, let's not try to eat this dinosaur in one bite. Let's take a lot of little bites to get it done.
Enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Enjoy that dinosaur.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah.
Did you have another blind no?
I did, but I'm not going to do the random one. I'm going to keep it. I'm going to keep it football related, which is weird, right?
You're calling an audible at the last minute.
Well, that's what I had. I was thinking about calling an audible back to like a road trip because I was thinking about, your favorite road trip snacks or music, that one song you like. But I kind of like the fact that in this people might say this is blasphemous the way the Chiefs have been playing and all the other better teams in the AFC, quote unquote. Dallas versus Kansas City or Green Bay versus Kansas City. Will either of those be a potential Super Bowl matchup?
No. I think it's going to be the Bucs or the Rams. Like I'm not a big Dak person. I think Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford, I said before the season, like that's a problem. Like I think Sean McVay is very creative. And I think that Matthew Stafford was going to be able to execute at a higher level the abilities that Sean McVay has rather than Jared Goff. I thought he would bring that out. And then I'm not betting against Tom Brady. Like I'm just not. So like I wouldn't surprise me. I have a standing bet. I don't think Dak Prescott will win the NFC ever in his career. I have a standing bet.
Wow.
I feel how I feel, and
you don't believe Dallas is back, huh?
I think he's a great quarterback. I don't think
awesome.
that they're going to beat either of those teams.
No, and it's funny too because I don't trust Stafford and McVay. Like the Rams to me, it's like I don't. Nah, they just to me they don't look like that offense where it's like I just think people haven't figured out. People haven't seen enough film on Staffy to see what he's about. And once they see that, they're like, okay, we got this. And then to me, I think people slept on Tom Brady last year, and they're not going to do that this year. So they're gonna bring it this time. He's not going to treat like an underdog, washed out bum. And to me, I think Dak's hungry, and I think Aaron Rodgers stays hungry.
Yeah,
and they got killer defenses.
They're all freaking good. I mean, everything doesn't have to be everything. One guy's great doesn't mean just because you don't like him as a Super Bowl champion doesn't mean he's terrible. But I've always had that kind of. I respect the hell out of Dak and all that. That's my one hot take that I got, I guess. Any other thoughts before we wrap up this final episode? Or this final segment?
I'm excited to see this. Yeah. I'm excited to see the Chiefs defense. It'll sound basic as hell, but I'm curious to see what Spags has in store for Derrick Henry. You got to respect Tannehill just a little bit, but at the same time, Derrick Henry is a freak. And if you let him grind you, he will grind you into a fine dust on his way to scoring.
I'm worried about how open the middle of the field is going to be when I don't care how open the middle of the field is going to be. If we sell out to stop Derrick Henry, if the linebackers are caught cheating up, you figure out what you're okay with getting beat by. And I don't think you could be okay by not selling out to try to stop Derrick Henry. And I'm excited to see, our cornerbacks, like we've talked about it before, our cornerbacks will come up and hit you. Like Rashad Fenton, I know Travaris out, Mike Hughes, like these, you can't play cornerback for the Chiefs and not be physical in the run game. And it's going to be challenged to those DBs trying to make tackles on that guy. And so that's what I'm most looking forward to. And that's all anyone's talked about all week. So that is not a unique take there, but we do appreciate everybody for listening. And hopefully we see, going back to the first point we made, second half of the Washington game, Patrick Mahomes, 19 of 24 for 175 yards and 3 touchdowns. Chiefs defense only gave up 76 total yards in the second half of that game. So we're going to see if these guys are ready to go. We know the Titans are. They're coming off that big-time win where they're feeling really good about themselves, playing at home. They feel like they're turning it around. Mike Vrabel is going to want to do everything he can to beat the Chiefs. So it should be a good one. We will have everything for you after the game, and Kent and I will give you that halftime update like we have been doing, but you can catch us on the KCSN Live post-game show afterwards. Appreciate all you for listening to this episode. Nick, you take us home with your final words.